Hi, everybody. This is Monica Sigmon, Sony Artisan of Imagery, and I am back with episode 9 of Sony Alpha Female, the interviews with a guest that I am very, very excited about, Katrin Eismann. Hi, Katrin.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for asking me to participate.
I have been so excited about today. So for those of you just joining us, this series of interviews is our opportunity with B&H and Sony to spotlight amazing female creators from the Sony Alpha Female community. So if you aren't already a member of the Sony Alpha Female Facebook page, make sure that you go over there and join the group, because it's just a wonderful community and a beautiful, safe space that kind of just wraps their arms around creators and helps you answer questions and gives you creative challenges every week. And it's just fantastic. So from there, we're pulling people to chat with. And today we have Katrin. She is an internationally recognized artist, teacher, author. She became a fellow Sony Artisan of Imagery in 2016. And I am really excited to show you the variety and breadth of her work today. The other thing that people might not know about Katrin is she founded and chaired, the Masters in Digital Photography department at School of Visual Arts in New York City. So no small feat there, Katrin. And for if all of that wasn't enough, you are an Adobe Lightroom specialist, so amazing, constantly teaching and educating on the capabilities of one of the most important pieces of software that we all use on the daily, I think. So, so welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So the last piece of your bio reads, and she has never met a pixel that she didn't want to change. So explain that to me.
Well, I have a goal in life that I have not achieved yet. I would like to take one picture that's perfect, that doesn't need any little bit of correction or upright. Well, forget vertical. I cannot take a vertical picture that's straight in my life. But it's sort of this goal I have. I want to have like one picture that's perfect. But I'm setting myself up for failure because cameras see so differently than we see. And the idea that you get a perfect image in camera sort of also takes away one of my favorite things to do, and that is to enhance, edit, look at my images, learn from my images. But I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah.
It might just be, maybe it'll be like a picture of like just like a black piece of cardboard, underexposed, really dark.
I was going to say, but then you're going to have the color correction thing, and that's going to throw you
That's
off.
right.
So,
Yeah.
And I think that I think as people are going to see here in a minute, as we look at some of your work, there's no subject matter for you that's off limits, really.
No, no, absolutely not. I mean, I like being curious. I like trying different things out. There's subject matter that I haven't like tried or photographed, but I'm open to the opportunity. In the old days, I mean, because I'm way older than anybody else in this room, you know, in your 20s, people are like, I have to find my style. I've got to get my niche. And nowadays it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You really need to be a generalist. You need to know about a variety of things. The client's not going to say, oh yeah, we'll hire somebody to do the BTS and we'll hire somebody to do this. It's like, no, no, no. You have to know a little bit of everything and be comfortable and capable in it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm curious about a lot of different things. And also we change. I mean, if I started, I'm going to make this up. I only photograph cats. You know, that would be like 40 years of photographing cats. So, you know, things change. You get to travel, you try different things out. So why not?
Well, one of the things I love about our Sony Alpha Female community is that it allows for these wonderful friendships, but it also allows for us to meet people that we have just respected and admired for so long. And so I mean, your name is just a giant in the industry. And so when I got the opportunity to briefly meet you at my first creative space in 2019, I was just like, oh my God, it's Katrin. And you are just one of the most down to earth, warmest people. And I am so grateful for all of the time and mentoring that you give everybody around you. The thing that I am most, and I think everybody that knows you would agree with me, the thing that impresses me most about you is you are never too tired, too bored, too worn out to photograph. You are, when we do these creative retreats, you are the first one up doing the sunrise shoot. You are the last one to go to bed after the astrophotography shoot. You check out every single model possible for every moment of the day, and you are shooting, 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 shooting. So before we get into my questions about that, for those people who might not be as familiar with your work, I just want to put some of your images up. We're going to do this a couple different times because I've sorted them out in different ways. So I want to just pull up a couple of your images here, and we're going to go into a full screen. And let's see. So I started here because, I mean, gorgeous, and you do a lot of traveling, right? So how many countries would you say you've been to?
I've never kept track of that, but I have, I can now say I have taught on all 7 continents.
Is that right?
Yep. Well, this is Antarctica. So I finally made that.
Wow.
I'm very, very fortunate, to have the freedom to travel, to have the resources to travel, and to have the husband that is willing to carry my camera equipment. So
You guys make a good team.
exactly. So very, I'm just very lucky, very curious. As I like to say, sleep is overrated.
Yes, I've heard
That's
you
what
say
that's
that.
what planes are for,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I do like wandering early morning, no matter where I am.
So
So
where is this, for instance?
that's a Havana. That's
Okay.
in Cuba, really, Katrin? So I mean, I hate this. I just look at that tableau and how many
I know.
stories it's telling. It's, I mean, I love it.
And so has this always been like this style? Has this always interested you? Because a lot of us travel, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of us travel. And a lot of people would walk by this and not stop. So what is it that piques your interest? How do you know what to include in this image? Like, walk me through your thought process on an image like this.
Well, when I first started photography, I only photographed things that could not talk back. So rocks, trees, dead things. That was my comfort zone. It took about 30 years before I felt comfortable enough to start
You're a big
photographing people.
introvert. You're a big
I,
introvert,
I'm
right?
totally and
Yeah.
socially inept.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
That's
always running
not
around taking
good.
pictures because I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to a party. Uh, so the thing with, like, for example, this was street photography. Um, in a way, you have to have your antenna out. And I saw the young man, and then I just waited. You just wait there, and with a 35 mm lens, you get enough of the scene. So a fellow Sony artisan, Ira Block, gave me this great tip where you should just wait where there's a frame and the image will come together. Something will walk
Okay.
into the scene. And I do that a lot. You just sort of, find an interesting backdrop, a frame, a setting, and just wait. And if you're there long enough, you actually disappear. I mean,
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, I
yep,
didn't think of that. Because
exactly.
we're a lot of us are self-conscious because we don't want to, we're like, are they going to think we're strange that we're trying to photograph them, or what are we doing, or whatever? But you're absolutely right. As
Yep.
we get more comfortable, then
Yes.
that opens up a whole world.
And also, I mean, so much can be communicated with a glance, like raising the camera. I'm not trying to hide. I'm not
Okay.
when I do street photography, I'm not out there with a 300 mm lens. It's a 24 or 35. When I go do street, I carry one camera on my wrist, and I don't have a camera bag, backpack, vest, logo, nothing. So it's just literally me and the camera. Right now, it's the Sony A7RC, smaller body.
I love that
but
camera.
It's amazing. Either the 24 or the 50. I have to look at the 40.
I just
And
bought the 24-250. So
I,
I've got them all in one lens now. I'm a prime girl, but if I can only take
yep,
one with me, that 24-50 is really, really worth
sweet.
it.
exactly. And this is going to sound odd. When I'm out photographing the street, I do not want to look like a professional. I don't,
Okay.
because then people are like, what are you going to do with that picture? How much money are you going to make? And you're like, and you
Oh,
can't say, so that's the thing. You just sort of like try to blend in. I was in Cairo in February or March, and I got up at dawn and walked into neighborhoods. People are like, you're what?
yeah,
And I'm like, you know where you are, you're aware. I'm a New Yorker, obviously safety first. Most people were just so happy, like to be photographed, to be
right,
recognized, to say good morning. I don't speak Arabic or Egyptian or
right,
anything.
right.
So it's amazing what connection you can make with the right attitude.
Well, I feel like I could even stop the interview now. I'm not going to, but I just picked up two great tips because I'm always worried about, um, you know, feeling like I'm invading somebody's space with street photography. Are they going to think it's strange? And I find that I give up too easily. So I am going to stop sharing here real quick.
Well, different cult, you have to be aware of the culture also.
Right.
So like in Germany, it's much less supported.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
yes.
But I
Um,
do like the idea of not, of just pretending you're a tourist. I mean, with just not like letting go of that idea that we're professional photographers.
yeah, and that over 10 years ago when the first Sony 7 was released,
Mhm.
the very first one, my husband bought it for me because I had other camera manufacturers and they were so heavy, I left
Yeah.
them at home, which
Yeah.
makes it very hard to take pictures if your camera's at home.
Uh,
And so I got that camera, I picked it up, I'm like, it fits. Because I mean, I
right.
don't have big hands, it's not heavy. So I went to B&H and I got the brightest pink camera strap they had. I mean, it was like
Oh
neon pink.
my gosh.
Oh yeah,
We're-
because was going to go to Cuba. And I'm like, I'm going to walk around with this pink strap. And people were like, oh God, it's just, oh, there's some tourists going to photograph cars. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever.
Smart.
Just sort of, you can't, you can't take yourself too seriously.
I am so excited already. I'm like, I can't wait to go back to New York. And I find that, like I said, I chicken out. I'm like, oh, they're gonna see me taking their picture. I gotta hurry and grab it. And you're doing exactly the opposite. You're just letting
Yeah.
it come to you. I love
There's
that.
there's different approaches. There's some street photographers whose names will not be mentioned who are incredibly aggressive. And
Mhm.
it's like, I'm not the person's enemy. I'm not
Right,
trying to catch you. I'm
right.
trying to show you in an unflattering way.
So
So anyway,
I'm gonna pull these images back up again and just let's see, let me go through these just to give people another little idea of just some more of the work. So another
yeah.
example of street photography, I wanted to pull a couple of, this is
Well, this
fantastic.
is obviously, I mean, you don't walk around, there's a ballet dancer
Right,
there.
right, right.
I mean, we worked with the National Ballet. Obviously, we set her up. And on the left side, I'm seeing this guy walk into the scene. And other people are like, oh no, get out of the way. And I'm like, no, 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 take the picture.
This is fantastic.
And that's the thing. I mean, could I have set that up? Doubtful. But you
Right.
have to be ready. And so when I shoot, I have both eyes are open. So
Yeah.
there's one for the viewfinder, one for, what's coming. And I saw him coming and I'm like, this is going to be great. And that connection, the way he's looking at her, I was
Yes.
just like, my work is done. Of
Yes.
course.
Yes. Exactly. Mic drop. Mic
And you
drop.
have to, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, um, oh boy, they say your 10 best worst pictures, your 10,000, whatever. You have to take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable. Like, oh, can you go back for a second, this guy?
Uh,
With like, I mean, I obviously signaled, can I take your picture? And he, you could sort of tell he was like, what?
Yeah.
But when I'm doing street, I mean, I'm using flash here. My husband's holding the strobe to our right. I get 3 shots. If I can't get it in 3 shots, it's something's wrong with me, so to speak. I'm not connecting, I'm not clicking. And
Mhm.
so 3 shots go. I mean, that's nice with the silent shutter. Oh yeah, you can take one picture. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Oh, another great tip. Why, what, this is fantastic. So let me back up a second. So if you have a flash with you, how are you looking like a tourist?
Oh, there's different ways of going out.
Okay.
So when I'm by myself, doing that, I'm going to hide myself. Yeah, that's just, it's, me one-on-one. But then
Okay.
when I'm actually, my husband's a photographer also, and we love traveling and taking pictures together because we photograph so differently. Lots of times we'll like go to a scene and like, you go to the right, I'll go to the left. And then we meet like at
Oh,
the
that's
other end, and I'll go, I saw your picture, and he'll go get it. Same. So if I'm out with a strobe, it's pretty obvious I'm making the
okay.
connection.
Okay.
Um, and so, and I enjoy it. I like modulating the light. I like the shape that it gives me.
Mhm.
This would have been a very flat scene without that light.
Yeah, it's great.
And the next example, which I saw coming, that's obviously out also with strobe, where I literally just stood on the street corner and just waited for things to go by with a slightly slow shutter, probably maybe a 30th or 50th, not
Uh-huh.
even a 15th, and used the strobe to flash everything. And it's complete surprise. It's
It's
just
so
like,
great.
it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's the great thing about digital. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, let's take a picture of it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, and-
you're so good about that, just experimenting and like you said at the top, like not taking yourself too seriously. And I think anybody that spends any time with you or who's fortunate enough to go on one of your photo walks, really, gets that from you and just the playfulness nature of experimentation. Like I love this guy happening to look up right in the
yep.
camera. It's perfect. Do you have a photojournalism background, Katrine?
No, no,
No.
but in the history of photography, um, street photography is so important. Um, and because I was in photo education for so long, I had to, study it, know about it. And it's
Okay.
so influential in terms of our news, etc. I'm
Right.
very interested, of course, here in these pictures of like how the women are working, what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can see her smile.
Yeah.
This is most of the time in India. You want to do street photography, you go to India. I mean, because
Mhm.
people are at first they're like, come into my home. And I'm like, what? What? Are you gonna like take my equipment?
Yeah.
No, they just wanted to show their homes, like come up to the fifth floor. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's at first you're like, what? It's often, in Cuba also, people are so genuinely nice
Mhm. Mhm.
that we are lucky to have the fortune to be able to experience that.
Several years ago, maybe about 15 years ago, Michael and I had a 24-hour layover in Manila on our way to Beijing. And we had friends there that took us around for the day. And it was so exciting to see how friendly everybody was and
Yep,
how most most particularly the children loved to be photographed, and they all wanted to come and see their image on the back of the camera. And
yep,
that's something we take for granted. Americans, we've all got cell phones, and the kids are, doing the phones themselves. And but to see people that just don't get to see themselves, I think is really, really powerful. And you have a couple more. We're going to talk about your current project in a minute that I think speaks to that really well. So I want to just pull up a couple more of these because in addition to, sorry, I try and, let's
you're
see,
fine.
I try and pull your face up when we're talking, but,
Oh
so in
no,
addition
leave the
to,
photos up, not important.
so in addition to this
Oh,
kind
I
of
love this
look
picture.
and feel,
I hate
this
to
is
say it.
fantastic. This is
So,
great.
so this is their workshop, okay, I'm in the workshop with a 24 mm lens. That's full frame.
It's
I mean, it is
fantastic.
small.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, look at him. He's like, it's amazing how direct he is, in
Mhm.
my opinion. And
Yeah.
then, she's more support. And then look at that shoe in the right-hand corner. It's like, this is for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Oh, maybe, okay, maybe I shouldn't be excited about my own images, but
No, you
the
absolutely.
stories that are here, and I bounced the strobe off of the ceiling because it was,
Yep.
dark.
Yep.
And we were in this town for, I think, 3 days. And by the last day, like everybody in that village knew my name.
Oh my
because
gosh.
I was like everywhere at all times of day or night.
And photography really does transcend language. I mean, it's just people with people, and relationship building and putting them at ease in a very short amount of time, very quickly
Yeah.
building some kind of a rapport. And I think that, of course, it's easier in your own language, but things like this, I think, are such a great challenge to communicate and get this kind of image. So
Well, as you know, as a portrait photographer, um, people like being recognized.
yes, they want to
If you
be
just like,
seen.
yes. And so you're like, and that's the whole idea. Like, I see you.
Right.
And that's worth so much.
And I think more important now than ever before. It just, the world is crazy. And since COVID and kids that have, had to be at school, doing school at
Isolated.
home for a year and isolated. And the more tech that comes into our lives, the busier everybody is, the more overstimulated we all are. And to have somebody just slow down and see you
Yep.
is, I think, the most powerful thing that we can do. Okay, so I'm transitioning here into some other images because
Very
I
other.
I want to see what is it about scenes like this that many people I think would walk by. It's an everyday kind of thing.
Yep.
And you somehow A, see something, and then B, photograph it in a way that causes us to have interest than more interest than we might have had we just walked by. So
Right.
so walk me through this one.
I've always liked to photograph the things that I feel other people would overlook.
Right.
I always say if I go to a national park, I'm going to be photographing the dumpster. Go ahead, you go get the grand scene. Not quite, but I think that idea of recognizing or seeing, I don't want to say that often they're overlooked,
Sure.
the less valued. I mean, this scene, yes, once again, I'm using flash because I just, I'm finally able to see light.
Mhm.
I mean, just think of the lives in that building. The fence says it all. The fence
Right.
is exhausted,
Right.
right? And this is winter in Michigan, up in the UP, Upper Peninsula. It's tough up there.
Mhm.
I mean, the winter goes until May.
Mhm.
And so that's the whole day. The people that live there and can make a living there, they amaze me.
Oh
Of
yeah.
course, the other people in town are like, why are you photographing this? And I'm like, isn't this amazing? And they're like, what? But I think that's what it says. Also, if you look at very classic work of a photographer named Walker Evans, the work that he did in the southern United States, very formal, very centered, storefronts, churches, roads, where it's just like, stop, look at this. And by us as photographers saying stop and taking a picture, we're saying this is important. And what is in the frame is important. I have left out the unimportant. That sounds like an ego statement. Control
No,
room, we need to cut that. No, I'm only kidding.
no, I think it's we have the opportunity to message what's
Mhm.
either important to us or communicate something that um like you said might be overlooked, and particularly in your project that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. I mean, that's the ultimate of seeing the overlooked and bringing attention to the overlooked. So all right, so you're seeing things like this and you're just, now that we look at them in an image, we're like, wow, that's really great. I probably would have walked right by that and not paid attention. So is it the textures? Is it, is
It's
it?
the layering and the history. This
Mhm.
is here in Michigan, about an hour from where we live. Just think about the people that work there. People's the entire lives, communities, supporting families, worked in this. This was near a railroad station, because it was big to bring in the harvest and things. So generations worked here, and this is all that's left.
It's so interesting to me because you are a self-proclaimed introvert, and I think the camera does allow many of us who are introverts to connect with people in a safe way, much more so than we would. But you are really, it seems to me, always thinking about the people behind the story. So somebody else might have shot this because they're like, oh, cool textures, but you're really thinking about the stories of the people, like the red house before. And I didn't know that about you. And I think that's really, really interesting. So then I think these are some that you did in COVID, right?
Yeah, during COVID, probably, maybe even before COVID.
So,
Coincidentally, I took like a 2-hour workshop at Sony Candle and learned about slow exposures, longer exposures. And
okay.
that like totally, this sounds so, I was like, wow. I mean, even though of course I understand shutter speed, I was like, wow, that is, the camera sees the world so differently than we do. And I love that. I mean, here I'm going to pull up real quick. One of my very, very favorite quotes is, I photograph to see what the world looks like photographed. It's by Gary Winogrand.
Mm,
And it's true because we know that we live in a three-dimensional world. The camera's going to flatten it. We are responsible for what's in the frame, what's in the foreground, midground, but also how the camera sees. And so we live right here on Lake Huron, and I was just like looking at the lake, and you know how everybody thinks they're so important. Oh, so important. And I look at the lake and I'm like, guess who the lake doesn't care about? Hands
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
I'm not even here for like a drop of time that the Great Lakes have been here for. And so I wanted to express that whole idea of this body work's called futility of memory,
Mm,
that, life goes on. And so
mhm.
I did this whole series early in the morning. It was only about 20 minutes worth of shooting time because I needed
I think
that
I have
golden
another
light.
one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. How about the futility of trying to fill up the Great Lakes with water?
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
so during the day, I would go to like thrift stores and buy props. I was limited $5 or less. And most of the time I'd return the prop and well, someone else could use it. And
Yeah.
then just play with that idea. And this is the thing that I love about, I mean, I started with film, in which you had a lot of experience with film, was the idea of serendipity, of
Mhm.
the, I don't know what's going to happen because you forgot, was that the developer or was that the fixer I just put in?
Right.
I don't know. So you just keep agitating. And so with these slower shutter speeds, I became good at sort of imagining what was going to happen, but I was always surprised. And my neighbors saw me in all manners of undress. And I'm like, I don't care.
I remember during COVID, because that's when we had just met through the Sony Alpha Female program.
Hmm.
And there were 6 of us that had been chosen to be creators in residence, and there were 6
Yep.
artisans that had been chosen to be our mentors. And we had one get together before the world shut down. And then the program, kind of, like everything else in the world, kind of went on pause for quite a long time. What I loved seeing was that you challenged Martine to keep shooting during COVID. Was it a 6-week project or 6 weeks
I
that you
think it was
guys
probably 4 weeks where we had photo conversations.
photo conversations? And so just explain what that was, because I think that's a really great creative exercise that we
Yep.
don't need a pandemic to do.
Don't, please, no more pandemics.
Yeah.
So the idea of this photo conversation was, it started off very simply, Martine, uh, you create an image that's important to you and tell me why. And so she created a self-portrait based on a very famous painting of a slave woman. Martine is black. And so she created that. And I had to respond to it. Like, let's not start off nice and easy. Let's
Right,
just address
right,
slavery.
right.
But also representation.
Mhm,
Because for her, that image was so important. She was walking through, I think, the Louvre, and
mhm,
she was like, wow, finally I see a picture that represents me. And
mhm.
so then I had to like respond, and we went back and forth, and we would talk, and I'd be like, boy, you're really pushing me. And she's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I did exposure to a number of fine art photographers.
that's so great.
But it was a very good series. And that series, in a way, inspired my husband and I. We photographed together. We go to the same place, and then we put up. I would always post the pictures and never say who took the picture.
Ah,
And
okay.
that was really great because I mean, obviously we knew the picture of the word, and I'm sure most people could actually guess because mine would be crooked and fuzzy, and his were always dead center.
So this brings me, that creative exercise through COVID kind of brings me to, this, I want to know how you stay excited and enthusiastic and curious every day. I mean, you shoot every day, right? Am I close to right? Like
Yep.
you shoot all the time. And I do love that the A7CR because it is lightweight. I'm looking at mine sitting right here because it's just light and easy and you can take it with you anywhere. And I know that that's your latest toy, but how? Like, aren't you tired?
Well, there's not really. I'll be honest, I don't photograph that much in the summer. I just
Okay.
don't like the light. It's just like I don't like it. And I'm also very obsessive about our garden. And
Ah,
I also golf. Great, two things that take a lot of time.
oh my gosh.
And
Yeah. Do you
the
garden
lights
flowers or food?
both. Well, here's the reason. So it's all organic. I grow vegetables and I give them to the neighbors and they give me homemade cookies. It's
That's
true.
amazing. I love everything
It's
about
like a
that.
perfect trade. Like, here are your peppers. And they're like,
Yeah.
here, do you like chocolate chip salted caramel? Yes.
Sure. That would be great. That would be great.
Um,
So
so
how do you stay so excited?
it's literally the question, what if?
Hmm.
What would happen if? How would this look if? And the great thing about photography, digital, is you look at the picture and the picture I just took is teaching me for the next one. Because I
Hmm.
don't have to listen to that little voice anymore of like, oh, this is stupid. This has been done before. That I don't care. And because I'm not a commercial photographer, I my only client is sitting right here in a green sweater.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that helps. So there's just the question of what if, what if I crawl through the grass? What does it look like? There's some amazing stuff down there that you wouldn't even think of seeing.
Were
Yeah.
you always curious, like as a child, were you a curious child?
Of yes, and my scraped knees prove it. Yeah, because I mean, it was always like get out of the house.
Mhm.
So
Well, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we were raised by wolves, our parents
exactly.
let us out at sunrise and you had to be back by the time it was dark
Yeah. And if
and
you didn't come back,
good luck to you in the in between.
if you didn't come back in time, you didn't get dinner.
Yeah, exactly,
So I
exactly.
think so it's I like asking questions with photography. I like figuring out the answers. It could be based on like some piece of trivia, something that I've listened to, um, read or seen.
Do
And
you go through phases? Like, do you go through, like, I find, I do a lot of like, I hate the word crafts or crafting because I don't like that word, but, for lack of a better word. And so I go through phases where I'll try something new and I'm like, oh, I want to really concentrate on drawing right now. And then I find something else and then I concentrate on that for a couple months. Like, do you go through those
yeah,
phases too with your subject matter?
yes, I like thinking, that's a good question. I like thinking more in terms of series or projects.
Okay.
Um, because the images will evolve and the project will evolve. And sometimes it doesn't. You're like, okay, I better save this one and
So
move
how,
on. But I like the idea of a project, like, the work that I'm doing in Arizona. It gives me something to think about, gives me something to chew on versus randomly going and taking pictures. I mean, for
okay.
me, carrying a camera is all about discovery. Um, I can see the world more clearly when I'm looking through a viewfinder. And I don't have my headphones on. I can't do that. Like when people go, oh, let's go for a hike and take pictures. I'm like, no, no, no. We either go hiking or we go take pictures because I cannot do both.
By the way, I should mention, if you guys listening live have any questions for Katrin or anything at all, just pop in and type those in, and we'll bring them up and ask her before the end of our hour. So how do you give yourself these assignments or projects? Because I think a lot of artists, okay, let me back up. A lot of artists have creative block. They go through times where, myself included. First of all, have you ever had creative block?
Yeah, but the best photo teacher advice I've gotten and give, shoot through it.
Shoot through it.
We are our own worst enemy. I don't pick up your cell phone. They've got great cameras. Just shoot through it. Try something different. Make a mistake. See what you can do. Shoot through it. I've had that happen where like the equipment is like too complicated. I don't get it. I get frustrated. I don't have the cable, blah, 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 blah. It's just a distraction. Just shoot through it. And then it used to happen a lot with traveling. Like, oh, I'm too shy. I don't want to go there. Oh, yeah. Photograph the hotel lobby, the patterns in the carpet. They're truly ugly, but you have to get that out of the system. Oh, this has been done before. You haven't done it. And
That's a great argument, because I do feel like, and I just totally interrupted you, I apologize. But I think this is important because I feel that many of us as creatives feel that we need to invent something that's never been done before. And if we do something that is inspired by somebody else, it's a cop-out. And so walk us through that a little bit, because that puts an awful lot of pressure on artists if we feel like we've got to create something just that's never been seen before all the time.
How could we do that? We could take a rocket ship to Mars because no one else has been there. But we bring our experiences, we bring our family, we bring our moods. Like, I had a fight, I didn't get good night's sleep, or I saw this really interesting movie and I want to like explore that. So we bring all of that. I have a cold. It's going to show. It's okay. So, maybe, read a book instead. I think people put way too much pressure on themselves. Now, here's the thing. Once again, I'm not a commercial photographer. I don't have to deliver a file by X time.
Right.
And from day one of when I studied photography up at Rochester Institute of Technology, in the freshman orientation, okay, I was a little older. I turned 30 as a freshman because I sort of tried other things. I literally said, I do not want to be a photographer. And everybody was like, what? What? No, I was there for the visual experience, for the visual vocabulary. So you have to be confident enough to say that. The word amateur, like people say, oh, they're an amateur. It starts with the word love. You love photography? That is great. I have so many people like, oh, I really want to do photography full time. I wanted to pay my bills. I'm like, can you pay your bills now? Can you pay your mortgage now? Yes. Do you have time for photography? Yes. And take all that pressure off of you. Because as you know, it's hard. It's very hard. So I would be happy to be called, an amateur, because I love this. And that's what it's about. So I've chosen a different route. There's the speaking. I used to write books. There's the workshops. That's all great. I now work at Adobe. I had wanted to work at Adobe for 34 years. Since I launched the first version of Photoshop, like with version 0.89 before it was released.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, I want to work at Adobe. So, I mean, I guess I knew a lot of people at Adobe, et cetera. I mean, from way, way back. So hopefully it won't take everybody 34 years to get to their dream. But there's, there were steps, and obviously I did a lot of work with Adobe, but there's got to be the right time in your life, and especially, for anybody that's listening that has a family, I admire you to no end. That's so much responsibility and so much time and so little sleep. Talk about not sleeping.
No kidding.
Young parents.
So I ask everybody in this series, I ask this question, and I thought I would know your answer, but now I'm not sure. So the question is photography itself the passion, or is photography a means to an end?
The discovery is the passion.
Okay.
And that's really the curiosity. I mean, that's the travel, that's trying things out. I mean, like I should do this again. A couple years ago, I had this like translucent, like onion skin paper.
I remember that. I
Yeah, and I
remember.
took out in the garden. I'm like, these are really cool. And I need to do more of those. Like, what? It cost me nothing,
How do
you
you come
know?
up with those self-assignment ideas and project
A
ideas?
lot of things like that, I was probably inspired by someone on Instagram doing silhouettes. I'm like, I can do a silhouette.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they're really beautiful. And so that's the thing. And the photography community now, back to Sony Alpha Female and Facebook, we're so much more open. I mean, oh God, like when people were in dark rooms, you couldn't just like, I'm gonna walk in and see what you're doing. No, because you just ruined $100 worth of paper,
Right, right.
and everybody had their secrets and their special developer. I always thought they were just spitting into it. Um, so one thing I don't like, please don't say, oh, this is probably a stupid question. No, it's not. You have that question, let's talk about it, because if you don't have the question answered, or if you have like this like creative block, it's because you didn't do it. So just ask the question, do it. There's lots of people with that same feeling. And if you feel
And
like you have creative block, you know what? Naps do wonders. You cannot
naps.
force yourself. I shall go at 2 o'clock. I'm going to be creative.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's a really great point, and I figured that out a long time ago. You can't create on demand. We're
Well,
not.
you can't, well, the professionals can because they've
Well, you can't
practiced.
be. Okay, so let me rephrase. You can
Yeah.
make something on demand, but you can't necessarily do something you're most creative
You
on
can,
demand.
but you can be ready.
You can be ready.
I mean, I'm not trying to argue or be like, really picky, but that's the
Yeah.
thing. By photographing like so many different things, like actual live people that talk back, or like, I'm so bad at landscapes. By trying these things, if someone asks me to, oh, could you, do an environmental portrait, be like, I'm ready. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, because you don't want to doubt yourself. You don't want to doubt your equipment. You don't want to like, what is the flash sync here? Because
Is there
that's the stuff.
something that you've always wanted to photograph that you haven't yet?
Oh, me personally, um, I've got to start thinking. I've been so lucky, so fortunate. I would actually like to, and I probably don't have the patience for it, is become better at macro photography. I love the abstraction. I mean, there's people that like do bugs and stuff, and that's
Yeah.
great, but I really like the abstract approach, and it takes a lot of care. Like, don't try to do that on a windy day,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
But I feel
know.
like you're a pretty patient person.
Don't say that with my husband in the room. Um, no, I'm very flexible and patient for failure. It's like, yep, you know what? It's not going to work out. It didn't work out. Go back, look at the pictures like, oh, you think I should have used a tripod? Maybe.
Oh,
Um,
that's so freeing when you take that pressure off
yeah,
and allow yourself to make the mistakes and, like you said, learn from them. I mean, we hear that phrase all the time, learn from your mistakes. It's very trite,
right,
learn from your mistakes. But you're really going through your images. I know you spend a lot of time in Lightroom going through them, studying
yep.
them, figuring out what you could do differently. And
Thinking about, oh, if only I had.
if only. And I tell that to students too when they're shooting and they come here and learn something different and they go back and try it. And I tell them you've got to, proof through that session immediately after you shoot it, because that's when it's fresh in your mind. That's
Right,
when you remember, I moved the key light for that and I really like it better here, or whatever the things are. And you can make your notes and you can respond in live time and before your next session. So I think that's really, really important to be able to do that.
and
Um,
wait. Sorry, on that note, I love photographing with other photographers. I mean,
because
because I'm always learning. I'm seeing like, oh, I didn't see that. Like the photo walks, for example, that we're going to be having at Creative Live in New York City in
Creative space. Yeah.
Creative Space
Yeah.
in
I think the guys will
November.
put the link in that
Yeah,
for anybody who wants to attend. It's the most incredible 2 days. The second day is open to the public. It's November
yep,
22nd in New York City. We'll all be there. All the artisans will be there. And it is the most incredible, like just little bubble of exactly that, a creative space. And it is
yep,
phenomenal. So definitely take a look at that and see if you can make your way up there for that event. So continue. Photo
exactly.
walks
So
are a
that's
big part of creative space.
yeah. So going on photo walks, photographing with other people. I mean, it's amazing. I could probably lock 10, well, I wouldn't do it. Like, lock 10 photographers in this office and have them take pictures, and they'd be different. I had a college professor literally use masking tape and did like a 5 by 5 foot square. We all had to go into the square and take a picture. They were all different. And
There
that's
was
the
a,
whole,
go ahead.
that, that's the whole idea. Um, you're not going to run out of creative ideas.
There was a book that I read as a child, and I haven't thought about this in years, but I don't remember that. It was something like 79 squares or 99 squares or something about it. And it was like a fiction novel, but it was basically a young boy who has to spend the summer with his grandfather or something like that. And the grandfather, his assignment for the entire summer was each day to spend the day in a 12-inch by 12-inch, observing a 12-inch by 12-inch part of the lawn. Like he had to
Yep.
grid it out, and
Mhm.
then he had to sit here and look and observe that space for a day. And he really learns to see, and it's a really great, I should look that up and find it again.
Yep.
But I think that's a really good, that made me think of that for the first time in probably 40 years, 45 years. Um, Okay, so I want to move to, I have so many more questions for you, Katrine. I wish this could be 2 hours because I have so many more I know we're not going to get to. I want to pull up, let's talk about what you're working on right now. Let's introduce us to the concept, and then I'll pull up some of the images so you can
Right.
talk us through them.
Over the last 2 winters, my husband and I have spent some time in Tucson, Arizona, because during the year we're in Michigan, which is known. I don't care about cold. I don't mind snow. It's gray. I mean,
Ah, okay.
I went to school in Rochester where I think they invented the gray card based on the sky
That's
in the
hilarious.
wintertime.
Yeah,
But and now you got two photographers, you're like, it's gray. I
right.
mean, you can already hear like, so we
Yeah.
find like we grew up on the East Coast, we paid our dues. I've had frostbite. It's and so we spent the winters a few weeks every winter in Tucson.
Mhm.
And that's not all like, oh, it's like, palm trees or cactus, I guess. Um, a lot of people have moved to the warmer climates
Mhm.
because that's the only place that they could survive. And
Mhm.
so I started noticing the people on the side of the road that were asking for money. I mean, and it's not easy, it's not safe. And so I noticed these people, I saw them. And when I mentioned this project to a friend of mine, her answer was, I don't see them. And
Mm,
she's making the conscious decision. And you see people in the car like gripping that steering wheel, 10 and
right.
2. I'm
Right.
going to look straight.
Don't make eye contact. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, there, but for the grace of God goes any one of us.
Mhm.
Because if you can show the pictures, I started doing portraits of the people, walking up to them with I was using the A7R5, I think, and then a 50 mm lens and a softbox with a flash. And I'm like 5'11", so I'm not to be overlooked.
Right, right.
And so walking up, signal that you might have to take your picture, as I mentioned, like 3 exposures, and then go
Katrina, is
and
the image up? I just want to make sure
yeah,
everybody's
it
okay.
is, yes.
Okay.
And then often I would talk with people ahead of time. I mean, we were in some median, the traffic's going by. Talk to this woman, she's from New Jersey, she'd been a horse trainer. Um, and just making a connection with people. So, and then, a few photos, and then I gave everybody $5 after the fact. People say, you shouldn't pay for photography. I'm not paying for photography. I'm saying $5 is nothing. And what happened near the end of the day, most of them would say, I'm just scared of getting mugged because there's other
Wow.
people who would mug. And I was like, oh my Lord.
Wow.
So people can argue the money, but I'm like, come on. And here's a little lighter thing we're talking about with my husband. He'd drive around and I'd see the people, I'd get out of the car and I always make him get out and like be my exposure test. Okay, we're okay. I'm not gonna walk over the light meter. I should too. I should post those because they're not very flattering.
So you are just introducing yourself.
Yep.
And are you telling them, did you know this was going to be a project at the beginning?
Yeah.
Like the first couple times? Okay. So how are you, what are you saying to them?
Oh, I'm going up. I'm introducing myself. I say I'm working on a project of the Unhoused, and I noticed you. Like, what's your story?
Mm.
And people would talk to me, and it's usually loss of a job. Many times it's a health issue. Um, and or they lost their job because of a health issue and an accident, or there's a relationship issue. Like I came out here for, and that didn't work out. And once you're down, it's very hard to get back up. And
So at
so
what point did you figure out, so you did a couple, but you didn't know it was going to be a project.
exactly.
So obviously you're not saying to those people, I'm working on a project for the Unhoused.
No.
So what did you say to those first few people?
Could I notice you, could I take your portrait and ask them the story? Because I'll have to be honest, it took a lot of my own personal like energy, like, okay, I'm gonna do this. There's interest, I'm gonna do it. Because
Sure.
it's sort of like, it's obvious I'm in broad daylight, but I was like, I didn't know how people would respond.
Right.
And so the people that are actually out there appreciated it. And so this is what I did. I don't know if they're any good, but the point is I see these people and these people should be seen.
And I'm
And
asking you
let's
that
say nobody wants to be out there asking for money.
I think that's such a great insight, and I'm asking that detail, but keep drilling down on this because I think that something as simple as what do I say when I don't know what I'm doing yet can prohibit photographers from taking a chance and putting themselves in a situation that they haven't tried before, and trying something that makes them feel uncomfortable because we just don't have the words. And so that's why I'm kind of asking that a couple
Right.
different ways, because I want people to have that tool to do something that makes them feel uncomfortable. And I know
Yep.
for me, I would be worried about, okay, if I ask this person if I can take their picture, how do I explain that this isn't trying to exploit them? Or, am I being fair? Am I taking advantage? Like I would
Yep.
trip over I'm tripping over my words right now. I would be so nervous. So I think that any guidance that you can share with people listening that want to take on a hard project, whether it's the Unhoused or whether it's mentally ill or physically ill, how do we get started?
Well, those are all very legitimate concerns and concerns that anybody that has a heart would have.
Mm.
Um, I always say this is a personal project that I'm working on,
Okay.
and which in my opinion cuts out the I'm going to exploit you or you're going to be like published. There are
Right.
photographers doing such good street work. Suzanne Stein, the work she's done both in New York City and in Kensington outside of Philadelphia. Tough, tough work. Also a Sony shooter. And like she's 24, 35 millimeter. I'm far away compared to her. And that is some dangerous work. Ruddy Roy, um, the work that he does and tenaciously does and writes about is just amazing. I'm still at the phase where I'm feeling this project out. And the idea of being exploitative nauseates me. I mean,
I know it
certainly,
does.
yeah, certainly don't want to do that. Do I know where it's going? Absolutely not. All right. I mean, this woman told me her whole story. You could see she's got scoliosis. And, there's got to be a better way for people that don't have the fortune in terms of family, job, economics
Resources.
to get taken care of. I
Mhm.
mean, this is going to sound ridiculous. I get to go to the dentist whenever I want, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, I have a toothache.
Right.
That's a luxury. And it's something that I try to be aware of.
These are such honest portraits. And I think that, I would have thought of bringing something as intrusive as a light and a softbox and, being so deliberate and intentional about it. But I think that probably makes them feel even more seen because you're not
Yep.
just grabbing a shot. You're not
Oh yeah.
just,
No, not a
that
long
would
lens. I
feel
don't do that.
more, that would probably feel more exploitative than I want to make a portrait of you. Now, are
Yep.
you able to, I imagine it would be almost impossible, but are you able to, are you giving them any, are you printing any of these and finding them and giving them a copy? Or is it something you don't think they would want? Like, what are your
I
thoughts?
think I have to consider that when I go back to Tucson this winter. Um there's people that will help unhoused people, you know, get better clothing, get a haircut, get the
Mhm.
dental care. And it would be good to be able to work with organizations like that. Where I haven't gone, and it's very apparent, I haven't gone to like any of the encampments because
Mm.
I'm like, I'd rather be out in the open on a street corner. I have
Mm.
had like this one time, this car stopped. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, this is so cool. Do you have an Instagram? I'm like, okay. I was
Wow.
ready to get yelled at. This
Yeah.
guy, wait, look at the slice
Oh,
of
sorry.
pizza. Oh
That's-
no,
yeah.
the slice of pizza on his bag. And someone gave him a banana. This is tough. He
Right.
was the one that's scared of getting mugged.
Mm.
And it's just like, wait a minute. And that's the thing. I never thought about that. I mean,
I think it's safe to say most of us haven't thought.
yeah. And so it's just important not to look away.
So do you see in the future for this a greater, and I'm asking this question because I know the answer because you pitched this project at our Sony retreat. So how do you see the greater purpose of these images? I know you didn't start with some big plan,
Right.
but I think as you're doing more and seeing, I think it's probably, you mentioned this in your pitch, you're coming away with this with so much more than what you feel that you're giving to them.
Yep.
So how, do you have any ideas yet about how you're going to use these for a
I
bigger
feel it's
cause?
im- I feel it's important to not take these images and somehow put them into a rarefied space and abstract them into, I'm not even going to say fine art, but they
Mhm.
should not be inside somewhere behind closed doors.
Mhm.
These have to be out in the community. And hopefully, by having them out in the community with a variety of display technologies, allow people to go, it's okay to recognize these people and to be involved. These people are in your community. They're in every community.
Mhm.
And then hopefully find an opportunity where people can donate, participate, volunteer. Um, I think that's just very important.
Do you
So
see this expanding to other areas besides Tucson? Do you think you'll do this in other towns or
I
cities?
think I think the photographer in those cities should do that. I think
Oh,
it's very
I love that
important.
idea.
I think
So
it's
would
very
you,
important I'm sorry, for the photography. I'm new to Tucson to be authentic. It's like, don't send someone, I'm making this up, to like some country in Africa to take pictures to come bring them home. There's a lot of good photographers on these other continents, in these other cities. So,
I,
if a Tucson photographer picked it up, I'd be like, more power to you, because they probably know the area much better than I do.
so would you consider spearheading that? Would you consider putting this kind of formula together that photographers around the country can and can access and contribute to their own communities and become a part of a larger collective of work?
I would, and I think that's been done in the past very well. I'll get back to that example in a moment. I think it's important for people in the communities to be involved.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't need someone from the outside coming in going, oh,
I
look,
agree.
you
I
know.
agree.
So, I mean, the proverbial you walk down the streets, take a
Mhm.
moment, stop, make
No,
the
I think it's
connection.
brilliant. Yeah.
And so, oh boy, I think it was Jeremy Cowart. Someone's going to
Oh,
correct me.
Howard. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That one day of like the second weekend of December to do the portraits.
Right,
And
right.
we did them through the school. We went to a facility and did the portraits for families. It was so impactful.
I remember that project and but I think this is still different enough
Oh yeah,
and
it's
timely. I think
it's
it's time
definitely different enough.
and I think that just the little things that we've gleaned from this 1 hour interview about, just a couple of things you've given us about how to start a conversation or how to move through our discomfort to do something for the greater good. I think if you were able to put that together in a way that's accessible for people, Michael and I always say this, people want to do good things. People
Yeah.
want to be charitable. I think the biggest stumbling block for people is they don't know how. It's not easy. They've got to do research. They got to make sure. We've all heard the horror stories about money you think is being used for one thing and it's being used for something different
Right.
entirely.
I'm listening. I'm just letting another Sony person know. I'll be right in the meeting.
Oh, we're on the way. And so I think that people inherently want to do good, but they often don't have the vision or the wherewithal or the experience. And if somebody like you or Jeremy, like he did, package it together and make it easy for other photographers to do good in their own community,
Yep.
I think people would be so privileged and happy to participate in it and know that they're doing it with kindness and grace and the right way and doing it in the spirit in which they really mean it and not,
There's
making
there's
them
lots of
feel better,
opportunity. There's
whatever.
lots of opportunity in people's communities. For
Mhm.
example, photograph the people that are working in your parks, local parks, like cleaning the trails or putting in that new bench.
Mm.
As photographers, hopefully we can take a better picture that communicates more effectively. You
Right.
see people volunteering at the, I was going to say where the dogs and cats go. Oh my God, the shelters.
The humane
Yeah,
societies.
photograph the people that are living in the assisted living home that nobody visits. You
Mhm.
do a nice little portrait in there. Lisa Carney just did a series with her phone and a Westcott light. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. There's so many opportunities. Talk to your neighbors. Halloween's coming up. What a great time to photograph. And it
Yeah,
comes up every year, so you could work on a series.
right.
So there are opportunities in communities. There's lots of small nonprofit organizations. Like you don't have to work for like, the panda bear people,
Right.
Greenpeace. Oh my God, my
World
brain
Wildlife
cell.
Federation. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's there's people doing good work in your community. There's people doing good work with food. Ask if you could photograph them. Most people will be thrilled. And that gives you the experience to like, I can do this.
And so many most nonprofits, I would say, do not have a budget for professional photography. And, photography is a huge piece of how they can market their cause and collect donations. And so I
Yep.
think that's something that, Michael and I do that a lot here. And it's just a way to shine some attention, shine a light, bring some attention to people doing good work and good things. So, Katrin, my mind is just racing. And I'm sure that many other people that are listening are also equally inspired. What's the best way if somebody wants to follow up with you with questions or bounce an idea off of you? I know you are so busy, but I also know you have such a heart for mentoring and being a part of the Sony Alpha Female Facebook group. And what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Rarely. I'm only kidding, people. I'm only kidding.
From a distance
Yeah,
in
yeah.
10 words or less.
Yes. You go to Instagram, Katrin-Eismann.com, or is it underscore? I'm easy to find.
Yes.
So that's really, and people are actually surprised that I actually do answer. Remember, it's called social media, which is great for people that are uncomfortable. So go there. I would definitely join the Sony Alpha Female, and in all honesty, would look forward to seeing people at events.
Yeah, this New York creative space, as I said, that's an easy train ride or quick flight for a lot of people on the East Coast. They'll have gear for you to try, photo walks for you to participate in. All of it's free, and it's just such a great way to connect with people in the Alpha Female Facebook group, other Sony artisans, other creators in the industry. I mean, it's just a really powerful event. I am counting down the days. So I think that the boys have probably dropped that link in there along with your socials. And I can't believe
Artisan.
with another artisan. So thank you so much for sharing all of your words of advice and wisdom. I've learned so much in this hour, and I'm just so grateful to spend a little bit more time with you and pick your brain. And so thank you for sharing, and everybody watching. Thank you guys for being with us, and most importantly to B&H and Sony, because you guys are the reason that we can bring attention to creators like this that are doing such important work and who can help all of us be our best selves. So B&H, Sony, thank you so much. And from everybody at the B&H event space, we'll see you next time.